You're in Braves country.
Good afternoon, Braves country. Hope y'all are getting set for a happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. As we're doing this on a Wednesday, not on our typical Friday show. And for obvious reasons, well, Friday's Black Friday, and we are going to be doing the Black Friday ball game. So there wasn't really a window to do it realistically. We're doing the Chiefs and Raiders Black Friday play-by-play. Right here on Braves Country Radio for those of y'all who can't catch it on, I believe it's on NFL Prime Video. So if you don't have that, then you can listen and root along here. Whether you're a Raiders fan or a Chiefs fan or you're just trying to cover the spread. The pregame show will come on at 1:30. We're not doing one on Saturday since we're doing the game on Friday. So the pregame show will come on at 1:30 and we'll go over all of your picks for the weekend. And of course it's a rivalry weekend in college football. But with all that being said, we are going to get into baseball talk here because that is what this show is all about. And we got the first big hit of the entire offseason, the first big signing last night. If you missed it, if you've been living under a rock for the last several hours, Blake Snell to the LA Dodgers for a 5-year, it appears it's going to be a 5-year, $182 deal. And essentially, that's where we begin today's show because I know a lot of folks are going to be fired up about that. It's not a big shock that he ends up being, that Blake Snell ends up being I think, the high dollar guy this offseason. There's a chance Corbin Burns could end up beating that number, but it won't end up being much higher than that. I think it's pretty likely that Blake Snell is going to be the high dollar guy this offseason. And that's how we are going to start this off with SNIT Happens. Normally do the smoke them if you got them, but we're going to flip it a little bit because SNIT did happen last night.
We keep playing like this, we'll be the laughing stock of the league.
Well, what do you expect? All we got on this team is a bunch of and a booger-eating moron. That booger-eating spaz make me want to puke.
All right, so that's the first thing that leads us off here today. See Kerry asking about Acuna. Kerry, Acuna and Strider, that was announced about a month ago that they would not be ready for the regular season. So neither one of them are expected to be ready for the regular season, and that is not breaking news at all. But yeah, if you haven't been paying attention, I'll tell you something that I did hear. It was pretty interesting. I went and did a deep dive on it because, like, what are they talking about? There's a heavy push for Ellie De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds to quit switch hitting. And I took a look at it yesterday. I was like, is it really that bad? He's a terrible right-handed hitter. I thought he was always pretty even Steven. I looked at the numbers last night. I was like, man, they've got a legitimate argument to make him just a left-handed hitter and try to teach him how to hit from the left side of the plate when a lefty is on the mound. Because his strikeout rate isn't much different because he's a terrible strikeout candidate, but his power numbers, his on base numbers, everything across the board, he's awful from the right side of the plate. And I think there's a legitimate argument that as of right now, they haven't done it. And the people that were talking about this had a fair assessment. They said basically he's going to have to own up and want to do it for himself. Because if you get a coach in there, forcing him to do it when he's not ready to do it, it's probably not going to go well. Maybe there are a couple of players that can reach out to him and talk him into it. But his numbers from the right side of the plate are pathetic. And at first I thought, I was like, that's nuts. He's a great talent. He'll eventually work it out. And then I looked at the numbers, like, man, numbers never lie. So that's your Red stuff there. And the other thing is, from the Red side, they are trying like hell to now move Nick Martinez, because if you missed it, he claimed he was offered the qualifying offer. He took it because his 1 year, $21 million. He's not worth $21 million. And now they're saying that the Reds want to try to move him. And until they can move him, they're kind of stuck, because he's not worth the $21 million, and they were hoping someone was going to offer him a deal and they would get a draft pick out of it. But instead, Nick Martinez says, I'll take that 21. Hell yeah. So they've got kind of a mess there to clean up as far as who would want to even think about that. If they do move him, he will the Reds will most likely have to eat a lot of that money. But they've got kids coming up from the minor leagues, and they want to kind of get them some exposure into the majors. But Nick Martinez, that's a really expensive bullpen arm, long guy in the bullpen arm, if that's where he ends up at. All right, now to the rest of the story. Blake Snell goes to the Dodgers, and what that's going to do, that's going to kick off the actual free agent season, especially from the pitching side. Now, we know that Kikuchi already signed a deal with the Angels, and his was 3 years, $63 million, $21 million per, but that's not a big signing. He's a solid starting pitcher, but if you look at that, that's a modernized version of what Charlie Morton was. I made this comment to someone on Twitter yesterday. They didn't really catch where I was pitching, but Kikuchi's making $21 million over the next 3 years. Charlie Morton made $20 million the last 2 years. And Charlie Morton, when he first came to the Braves, was making $15, but you're talking about these salaries have gone up. And so essentially Kikuchi is a left-handed version of Charlie Morton. He's an older pitcher. He's expected to eat innings, but he's not always going to be all that dominant. But there are times where Kikuchi's very good, and that's what the Angels are going to basically put him out as their ace, even though we all know he's really more of a 3 or 4 man on most staffs. So the next guys that have been signed, and we're just going to rattle these off real quick because most of y'all know all these guys have been signed, but real quick, when we're talking about, and I'm really just going to go to the starting pitchers at this point, it's Snell, Kikuchi, and Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks, a 1 year, $2.5 deal. He'll be an innings eater with the Angels as well. So the Angels have been a little aggressive, but they haven't been aggressive getting big time names. They've been aggressive getting some guys that can eat innings. And if they can get good innings out of Kyle Hendricks and Kikuchi, what you're really talking about is getting 2 guys for this year that will average out, when it's all said and done between the two, of about 12 per player. even though they're expecting much more out of Kikuchi than they are Hendricks at that value. And so that kind of starts off the Angels. But these are the guys that are still left, and these are the guys that some of them are going to have a higher market value. Some of them, at this point, you're looking at there's upside, but there's also a lot of age. And so when we talk about that, we're talking about like Justin Verlander, he's 42 years old. Max Scherzer, he will be 41 years old next year. Patrick Corbin, he was very good off the tail end of the season last year, but prior to that, Corbin has been massively overpaid by the Nationals his entire contract. Charlie Morton, 41 years old. He still says that he wants to come back and pitch if the price is right. Now, what does he think is acceptable? Will Charlie Morton come back to Atlanta for a bargain bin type deal? Because they have no interest in giving Charlie Morton $20 million again. Could I see them possibly do somewhere in the range of 8 to 10, maybe a touch north? I could see that because they know one thing from Charlie Morton. He's pretty durable. He'll go out there and he'll push, and he will get you 150, 170 innings plus and keep you in ball games. And he's also very popular in the locker room, and you can't really put a price tag on what he does in between starts working with the other pitchers. So Charlie Morton could come back, although it doesn't look like it at this point. I think it's much more likely that the Rays give him a bargain bin deal and he goes back to Tampa Bay. Nathan Eovaldi, he is going to be 35 years old by opening day, and he's a guy that I like a lot, but I wouldn't want to give him more than a 2 or 3 year deal. And you're probably talking about his previous AAV was around $17 million. You could probably get him closer to the 15 or just south of that. But Nathan Eovaldi is a guy that I like a lot, just as long as you don't have to overpay and as long as it doesn't have to be a long deal, because Eovaldi has had some injuries. But he is a guy that if you've not paid attention to his career, Nathan Eovaldi is an absolute bulldog. And if you get him in a big game, just like Chris Sale and just like a couple other guys we've had in the past, you have complete confidence of him going into a playoff game. And the next one on my list, he's not a free agent, but he's up rumored to be traded, would be Sonny Gray. Now, would they pay the whole freight or would St. Louis take some of the money? That remains to be seen. But to Sonny Gray, signed a 3-year, 25 per. He just finished the first year. Sonny Gray is from Braves country. And so you think that there might be an option there because it looks like that St. Louis wants to kind of do a rebuild. They're not going to tear it all down from scratch because that's just not the St. Louis Cardinals type of mentality. But they are looking to kind of take a step back this year and rebuild in a youth movement and save some resources for next offseason. And so Sonny Gray's been rumored quite a bit. I do think he's a target for the Braves. It's just the question is, I see the comment about Morton. Charlie Morton's not coming back to the bullpen. If someone tells Charlie Morton he's going to come back to the bullpen at a cheap deal, because you're talking about like Charlie Morton to your bullpen would be about a $4 or $5 million. He's just going to hang him up. So Charlie Morton's either going to be a starter somewhere around the 10 million, maybe a touch north, maybe a touch south, or he's going to hang it up. He's made quite a bit of money in his career. But back to the Sonny Gray thing, it would be a strong investment, but the Braves, though they claim that they are going to spend in this offseason, I don't know if I believe it, guys, and I'm just being very, very honest with you. If you look at the numbers, what the Braves have to spend before they kick through the threshold again, where you start getting banged for, this time it would be 50% taxes, okay? Because this will be the third year in a row, and they start losing draft compensation. And I'm just not sold that that's what the Braves are going to do. I think they're going to try to make moves on the cheap, which means they may have to cut loose of some of their prospects to bring guys in if a team's willing to eat some money. A team like the Cardinals with Sonny Gray or possibly Jordan Montgomery out there in Arizona, because he's been rumored to be moved. He's got 1 year left on his deal, and Arizona's talked about eating some money to get some prospects in. But just realize, if this happens, there's a good chance you're going to lose somebody that you like a lot in our farm system. And that's a strong... I would see them more likely doing that, going deep into their farm system for a Sonny Gray who's controllable for 2 years, as opposed to a guy like Jordan Montgomery who only get one. If you give up prospects for Jordan Montgomery, I would tend to think it's going to be on the lower end. So it might be more reasonable to think that that's who we're going to end up with. And Jordan Montgomery, he was a great left-handed pitcher. He would kind of solve the issue of losing Max Fried. And Jordan Montgomery in 2023 was phenomenal. But just like Blake Snell, he was late to signing, and it affected his entire season. And so with that being said, those are the two guys that I have circled. Now, people were asking me today on X, and if you ever want to follow us on X, it's Braves Country X. It's at Braves Country X on X, which used to be Twitter. So, but one of the questions that I got posed to me, and I decided to do some research and then answer it here today, was about Max Fried. Where's Max Fried going to go? And the question was posed to me whether or not I thought maybe he would end up in San Diego. And look, I could see the Padres pushing their chips in and saying, hey, you went out and got your lefty in Snell. We're going to go out and get our lefty in Fried, and let's do battle. And we all know Max Fried is from the San Diego area. So it would make a ton of sense. But when I'm hearing and seeing, and I'm going to put an asterisk by this, because this team has been rumored in a lot of these deals, and they've been rumored in deals over the last couple of years, and they've never pulled the trigger. The only reason why you give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt is because they used to make big deals, but they have not done that under the current ownership, and that's the Boston Red Sox. And it would make a ton of sense for the Boston Red Sox to push their chips in and go get Max Fried and get a left-hander, not only for their stadium, but they know the main team they have to run down in the division are the New York Yankees. And if you can get a left-hander to pitch in New York on the road games in Yankee Stadium and keep the ball in, not to mention the fact Max Fried is a ground ball pitcher. So you're talking about a guy that would kind of fill all their needs. And if he's going to leave, and I do believe he is leaving, I don't think he's coming back to Atlanta. I would love to be wrong on this, but all the signs point to no. And I think next week we're going to bust out we got a crystal ball in there we're going to have some fun with. But I had a situation right before I came on here. We had a delivery coming to the house, and son of a gun, they tell me they're going to be here between 11 and 3, and sure enough, here they are pulling up about 10, 15 minutes before we go on the air. So I didn't have that thing set up because I'm sitting here waiting on the jack legs. But anyways, we're going to do the crystal ball thing, I believe, next Friday. Have some fun with it. But if we're going to lose Max Fried, man, I want him to go to the American League because I really don't want to see him. I would have liked to have seen Freddie Freeman go to the American League because if you're going to betray us and leave us, and I get it, it's a business, but I'm still a huge Braves fan and will always be a Braves fan. And I can't look at him in another uniform on the regular and be okay with it. And there's been rumors that the Mets are after him. Although I do think the Mets ended up getting Corbin Burns now. Now that Blake Snell is a Dodger, I think Corbin Burns is going to be set to possibly be a New York Met. Because the Mets are going all in on trying to get Soto. I still believe that's who ends up with Soto, though they're shopping around and doing everything they can, right, to move that around. But even with that being said, I believe that you're going to see the Mets make two major moves this year in the offseason. I believe Juan Soto is going to be number 1 with the bullet, and number 2, Corbin Burnes would make a lot of sense because you get them a veteran pitcher. Because I don't think they're bringing back Sean Manaea. Sean Manaea moved his value up to where he's going to try to get someone like a Baltimore to sign him, where he's a little cheaper version of what they're getting, of what they're letting go in Corbin Burnes. But Sean Manaea really works in that stadium very well. Without getting into all the logistics of it, Baltimore's left field fence was moved back, and when it was moved back, and last year, right-handers had a hard time hitting the ball out of that stadium. And if you get a left-hander like Manaea, a good, strong left-hander like that who induces ground balls and swing and miss, my crystal ball right now would say that Manaea has a very good chance of ending up in Baltimore and that the Mets end up with Corbin Burnes. And so now you end up with Max Fried out there, and I could see San Diego pushing in, though they've got a lot of question marks about their ownership group because remember, their owner passed away about this time last year. And they tried to move some things around, and it really depends on what the new leadership of the Padres, what their bottom line is. Do they just want to win a World Series at all costs? Because they had it set up last year. You look at it, I still say the Padres were the best team going into the playoffs. They just didn't perform well for once against the Dodgers in that one game. Remember, they got to the 5th game, and it was a do or die, and they died. And so the Padres, do they continue to be aggressive, or does it start to fizzle out? And if it's not the Padres, Max Fried in Boston makes a lot of sense. But I could also see him taking a pretty sizable deal if the Angels want a true ace and they say, hey, come home to Southern California. We'll reunite you with Ron Washington. You'll be pitching to Travis d'Arnaud. Oh, by the way, Jorge Soler's here. I could see all that happening. I just, as a Braves fan, hope he ends up in the American League because I don't want to see him every couple of weeks in another uniform. I don't want to see it. And I don't think he's going to be this big bust. There are guys that leave that I was like, man, I'm glad we didn't spend money on him. Guys like Dansby Swanson. But Max Fried, if you can keep him healthy, he's going to be very good for a very long time. Other guys of interest, starting pitchers that are out there, and we'll go ahead and start this off as the smoke 'em if you got 'em.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
What's all the shouting?
Extra, extra, read all about it.
What's all the shouting?
A lot of the guys that are being rumored, and so what we're going to get now, this is what you can expect. This is what's going to be hot going over the week. It's going to be a little difficult to get a lot of things done because it is Thanksgiving, but more so going into the end of the weekend, going into early next week. And remember, next week, we're going to be in December, which means we are going to be about a week away from the winter meetings. And the winter meetings is more likely is when you see a lot of movement happening because teams start figuring out, all right, who's really willing to trade this player and that player and all that kind of stuff. But you do see moves, and you tend to see moves from the Atlanta Braves and Anthopoulos during this time period. So we're going to be scheduled to come on the air next Friday at 4:15. For those of y'all who might be catching us for the first time, because I see a lot of people watching right now, but for those of y'all who may not catch us regularly, we're here Fridays at 4:15. We're here today at 4:15 because of Thanksgiving. But the Braves are more likely to make a move before the winter meetings than to wait till after. So if we get a move, expect for us to come on that day. And I guess to make it simple, I'll probably shoot for 4:15. Because I should be able to get home each day from work. And so we'll shoot for 4:15 so if there's any kind of breaking news, That's what time will come on. And then the week of the winter meetings, we're planning on coming on every day at 4:15. The Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday really depends on if there's any movement on Thursday. But the first few days of the winter meetings, we will be on every day. But you look at some of the guys that are available, and I'm talking about guys that are realistic and guys that are affordable and guys that the Braves would want to make a move on. I'm still looking at Walker Buehler. I still think Walker Buehler is a guy that we could get in. He's 30 years old. He just turned 30 a couple of months ago. And Walker Buehler is probably looking for a long-term deal. But if he gets a long-term deal, he's not going to get top market value. So I think he's going to be forced to look at a shorter-term deal, like a prove-it type of deal, and then hit the market again either next season or in 2 seasons. And that's why I think the Braves are going to be looking for Walker Buehler. And Walker Buehler is a guy that I think is a realistic sign. I don't see us going for Severino because I believe Severino is either A, going to go back to the Mets, or B, if he goes and steps out somewhere, he's going to be 31 years old. He wants like a 4-year deal, and he wants a decent tag. And he had a great year last year. But my question with Severino, can he do it every year? Because the last year was an outlier. That's not who Severino typically is. Jack Flaherty's another one that's out there. I don't want anything to do with Jack Flaherty. I don't believe he's going to be worth the money that you're going to that he'll command. And he's a guy that even in that World Series run, he's not a guy that the Dodgers really could count on. He got thumped a couple of times. Sean Manaea, we talked about him. I still believe he either returns to New York, but most likely goes to Baltimore. Frankie Montas is out there. I have no interest in Frankie Montas. I don't think he's going to be worth whatever he commands on the open market, and he's going to be 32 on opening day. So unless it's a 1-year, very, very club-friendly deal where he's going to try to go prove what he can do, I have no interest in Montas. Same thing with Jose Quintana. He may decide to stay in New York on a club-friendly deal. He was making 13 per over the last few years with the Mets. And if you really enjoy being a Met, he's a poor man's Max Fried. He doesn't get hardly any strikeouts, but he does tend to get 5 or 6 good innings. Usually he's a very good candidate for a quality start, and he keeps the ball in the ballpark. Other guys that are out there that are interested, we've seen kind of rumored with the Atlanta Braves. By the way, I have no interest in Lance Lynn. I keep seeing that pop up. Ugh. Lance Lynn's going to be 38. He wasn't very good last year. I can't imagine getting a year older and probably knowing Lance Lynn 30 pounds heavier. I can't imagine he's going to be any better than he was last year. So steer clear of that. Interesting guys you could get cheap flyers on if some of these other guys don't work out and we don't get, because I think Atlanta's in the market for 2 pitchers. I really do. Now they may not be the top of the line starters that we're all hoping for, but I think they're in the market for 2 pitchers, preferably a lefty and a righty. Alex Cobb is going to be a free agent. You're going to be able to get him on a good deal, but once again, he's 37, just turned 37. And he's a guy that you don't want him on more than a one-year deal or a 2-year deal with a club option. Other guys that are out there that are of interest, Cal Quantrill is a little interesting. I thought that they were going to retain him. They did not. And he pitched really well this past season. So it's a little strange that they did not keep him, though he did have a bad second half of the season. But he pitched much better when he wasn't in Colorado. Colin Ray is a guy that I think he probably returns to Milwaukee. But Colin Ray is a guy, 34 years old. He's very steady. You could use him as a swingman out of the bullpen, but he's a guy that can go out there and get you 4 to 5 good innings, and you're not going to pay top dollar for him. But He's also a guy that when guys like Strider come back, you could push him into the bullpen. And remember, we're going to need bullpen help. Joe Jimenez is gone. There's not much of a chance that he's going to pitch this year because of his injury. He had the surgery. The timeline, he had the surgery in October. The timeline was 8 to 12 months. Well, if it's anywhere close to 12 months, they're just not even going to try to bring him back. And A.J. Minter being a free agent, and he's probably going to command some money. And I hate to see A.J. Minter go. He's been a very good pitcher for us. But A.J. Minter is not a guy that they typically pay big bucks for because they already have a closer. But would they, the problem is they're paying the kind of money they're paying. They just gave Jimenez a contract extension, remember? So they're having to allot that money to him, and that doesn't come off the books. That you're still paying that, and it's a part of your cap number, even if the guy's not playing. See some of the questions. Someone's asking about A.J. Smith-Shawver. Well, he's a guy that is going to be in the argument for the starting rotation. Remember, he's still young. So he'll be 22 this year. He has very little experience. A.J. Smith-Shawver, and we saw last time we saw A.J. Smith-Shawver, man, he got annihilated. So we don't know what we can expect from him. Same thing with Hurston Waldrop. These are guys that you're hoping long-term. These are also guys that if we bring in guys like Sonny Gray, if we bring in guys like Jordan Montgomery, you might see one of these guys get moved. I don't want to see A.J. Smith-Shawver traded. I don't want to see Hurston Waldrop get traded. But you have to give to get, and that's the dangerous game. And it really does suck. But not everybody's the L.A. Dodgers where they just scoop up all the players and keep paying and paying and paying, and Major League Baseball's done nothing about it. And just like it wasn't good when the Yankees were doing it and when the Red Sox were doing it, it's not good for baseball to have a monopolized team because it becomes very boring. And they need to have baseball was at its best a couple of seasons ago when everybody felt like that they had a decent chance to go. And if you spent a little bit of money, you had a real shot. With the stuff that's going on with the Dodgers, it just feels like that they're accruing a super team. And those are your main starting pitchers that are out there. There are guys of interest that you could see. I'll tell you someone who surprised me. I thought they would tender him, but they decided not to tender him. Huascar Ynoa, 26 years old. I would have liked to have seen them brought him back, possibly into the bullpen. But we're also remembering Huascar Ynoa from pre-punching the damn bench in Milwaukee. And heck, by opening day, that'll be 4 years ago. Almost 4 years ago. So, as far as the bats are concerned, the Braves are being rumored. So we went over the starting pitchers. Let's go ahead and hit. That's the rumor.
That's the rumor.
You retired too?
Not me. I'm in my prime.
All right, so let's get into the outfielders because the outfield market is who everybody is focusing on. Now, they keep saying that the Braves are looking for a left-handed bat. And I can see that, but at the same token, if they're going to platoon when Acuna finally does come back, probably in June, when Acuna comes back, do you necessarily need a left-hander to platoon with Jared Kelenic? That's why I was really under the impression that they would probably bring back Laureano. They let him walk, and maybe they'll bring him back at a cheaper deal. But I had the impression that you would keep Kelenic, you would keep Laureano, and you would sign another outfielder and have Kelenic and Laureano spell the defense throughout the season because, let's be honest, when Acuna comes back, he's not playing every day. They're going to ease him into action. And you can't DH him because that's where Ozuna's sitting. And they've tried to put him out there in the field last 2 years, and it's never worked out. So here are the outfielders of real chance that they could possibly end up in an Atlanta Braves uniform. They're talking about Teoscar Hernandez. If we're looking for a left-handed bat, well, you can scratch that out. He's a right-hander. And I also think he's going to, although I think he wants to get paid, he is 32 years old. Hernandez seemed to be very happy in L.A. And if they can work something out with him, he'll probably take money to stay in L.A. Michael Conforto is one of the guys that is being rumored. Now, he'd be coming from San Francisco. He's not what he was, but he had an okay year last year. Anthony Santander. That's the guy that everyone would want. Problem is, he had a career year last year, and what is he going to be asking for? He made 11.7 last year. That's not what he's going to be looking for this year. I think he wants something north of 20. And you're looking at the other guys that are available. Alex Verdugo of the Yankees. I'm not a big fan of Alex Verdugo. He's a guy that shows a lot of bravado, but he doesn't back it up. He's a light hitting outfielder. His defense is okay, but it's nothing to write home for. I keep seeing that being rumored. I have no desire to go after Verdugo. Kerry's asking what free agent wants to go play for the Rays. Nobody's ever wanted to go play for the Rays, Kerry. I don't know what to tell you about that. I don't know why you're droning on about the Rays, but they never have any money to go out and spend. They're always rumored to go out and spend. Remember when Freddie Freeman became a free agent? They said, Freddie Freeman gonna be a Tampa Bay Ray. I was like, yeah, I believe that when I see it. They never sign anybody. The only person they've signed in recent memory was Zach Eflin, and they've tried to get rid of him since the day they signed him. They can't afford anything. They can't get fans to come to the stadium in Tampa or in Miami for that matter. So anytime you see a rumor of the Rays or the Marlins going out there and making a big splash, it's not happening. And the fans will try to tell you, well, they need to win before we come out and watch. It's not the way it works, and that's why you're eventually going to lose your franchises. So anyways, that's about 90 seconds. We'll never get back talking about the Rays and Marlins. But back to teams that matter, players that matter. Tyler O'Neill is out there. He's an interesting one, but what's he going to command? Because he's coming off a year where he made 5.8. He's going to be commanding a lot more than that. He's 29 years old. He's got a good power bat. He is right-handed, so I don't know if that leaves him out. I don't know what they became with the obsession of thinking we had to get a left-handed batter. I mean, you've got in the starting lineup, you've got Harris, you've got Olsen, and Ozzie Albies when there was a right-hander on the mound. So there's three lefties in the everyday starting lineup. There's not really a need to have a fourth lefty. So I think that's a narrative that was invented by writers who are wanting clickbaits. Here's a guy that's out there. Jason Hayward. He's going to be 36 this coming season, and his WAR was in the negative this year. A couple other guys that are of interest that you could see them make it. Now, I could see a deal with the Jesse Winker. And he's going to be very polarizing if they do sign him. Jesse Winker is a guy, he's the one, if you remember in the playoffs, he smashed his helmet off a home plate in the Milwaukee series with the Mets. He's the one that got into it. Ran his lips to somebody with Milwaukee, and the guy from Milwaukee waited for him outside the locker room, and he never showed. But he's a guy that's going to bring a lot of issues. But he is a left-handed bat, and he can hit the ball. And he could be a fairly cheap option. He made 2 this year. I think he's going to expect well north of the 2 frame, but I don't think he's going to be anywhere near what you would consider elite contracts. Other than that, left-handed bats on the free agent market, they're kind of not there. And so that's why I don't think they're going to be hellbound and determined that they have to get a lefty. You've got Kelenic, like I said. And if you bring back Ramon Laureano, I think if you brought back Ramon Laureano, it would be on a 1-year deal. And you would be trying to sign him for something of 4 or less. Is he willing to sign a 1-year deal at that rate, knowing he's probably not going to be a starter for the entire season? That's the question. Do they do that, or do they say, you know what, Eli White, you'll be fine. You'll go out there and platoon with Kelenic, which could be a very strong possibility, and we're going to go try to find a much bigger bat like a Santander if we can get the AAV down. And that's the biggest question, is what are these guys, what are they expecting? Because if they start getting, if it takes one team to offer them something through the roof, and then you got to step back and say, I'm not paying that. I'm not paying it. So we're sitting there now that the market has been set essentially with Blake Snell. We're waiting for the market to be set for Juan Soto. I still don't think you have to wait if you're a team looking into the other guys that I just mentioned, because there's nobody on the free agent market that is in the same universe as Juan Soto. Nobody on the free agent market in any position is going to make the kind of money per year that Juan Soto is going to make. So it still ends up being that's who they end up waiting to see them set the market. And a lot of it has to do with not the general managers. It has to do with their agents, and their agents slowing all the process down, because you call about player X and they keep driving the narrative back to, well, let's talk about Juan Soto. What are you going to offer here? Now, the rumor on the street for Juan Soto is 5 teams have put in an offer. 5 teams. Now, they have not said what the offers were. They were all guesstimated, but anything you read or heard, it's a lie. Nobody knows. But the 5 teams that have put in an offer, and the Phillies are not on that list. Everyone had talked about the Phillies going after. I knew that was absurd. The Phillies are not on that list. It's the New York Mets and the New York Yankees, and they have to be 1A and 1B as far as the favorites. If you want a 1C or a strong number 2, it's the LA Dodgers. The LA Dodgers are going to make a real run. And then 2 more teams that are back east. The Boston Red Sox, we talked about them a second. And then the other thing, and this one's, I don't know if I believe it as far as how serious they are, but Toronto Blue Jays. Remember the Toronto Blue Jays were in on the Shohei Ohtani deal last year, and it was being rumored that he was flying to Toronto, and all that ended up being nonsense. John Heyman wore a lot of egg on his face. They're being rumored again to be in on the Juan Soto. And supposedly what Juan Soto is asking the teams is it not just how much are you willing to spend, what does your farm system look like? Because I want to compete. I don't want to go somewhere, make a bunch of money, and then just not win. I mean, my argument back to him would be, well, you can't have both ways. Right? If we drain all of our assets to bring you in, we're not going to have a lot of assets to sign other folks down the road. So that's why I believe it's really a 3-team race in the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, because they have the kind of money that's going to be able to continue to add other players every year. But if I'm being honest, if he's going for just money, it's going to be the Mets. If he's going for, I want to win every year and I don't want to have to work very hard, it's going to be the Dodgers. If he's looking for some kind of a legacy, because being a New York Yankee and winning a World Series would be something special, all right? But if he wants to win a World Series and be known as the face of that franchise, there's really only 2 options there to me. It's either the New York Mets, because how long has it been since they've been worth a hoot? I know they made the series back in, 2015, but they haven't won one since '86, and they haven't been particularly competitive each year. So if you want to be the face of a franchise and win a World Series that's just going to mean a little bit more, you're either going to go to the Mets or you're going to go be the face of an entire country in the Toronto Blue Jays. And that's just where Swipe Left says trade for Corey Seager. Yeah, that's a good one. Corey Seager making over $300 million. Yeah. That's like all the football fans go, we just need to trade for Patrick Mahomes. That'll fix it. Yeah, that's not happening. Unless Swipe Left is a Dodger fan, then it could possibly happen. But Corey Seager makes way too much money for the Braves to even entertain. We're on the bargain bin tour. And the shortstops, real quick, I'll jump off here right after this, but I do want to hit the shortstops one more time because we are hoping. The guy that's going to set the market there is Willy Adames. I don't believe the Braves are really in the market for Willy Adames. It would be great. I think he'd be a sound investment, but I think he's going to ask for a lot of money, and the Braves, are they willing to go there? They haven't shown that they are. He's going to ask for a much better contract than Dansby Swanson, and he's going to be worth it. So the shortstops are realistic that the Braves could actually go out and acquire out there on the free agent market right now would be Paul DeYoung to do a straight platoon with Arcia. Talked about this in the past, but he hits right-handers much better than lefties, and Arcia is the exact opposite. And that would be a perfect platoon system. He would be very affordable, and you wouldn't have to sign him to a long-term deal. Ahmed Rosario, same situation. You could platoon him at shortstop. That would be an absolute perfect scenario because he's a switch hitting shortstop. So you could put him out there whenever Arcia goes ice cold. You could put him out there any day. Whenever Arcia is smoking hot, you set Rosario on the bench. And he's only 29 years old, but he has fallen out of favor as far as any kind of chance of a big contract. Jose Iglesias, who was with the Mets last year, good contact hitter, gets on base. But last year was an outlier, so I don't know if that's something you can count on. He's going to be 35 this year. Can you expect that every single year? And, of course, Kim would be the other guy that coming over from the Padres, Ha-Seong Kim, he's traditionally a second baseman, but he has played a lot of shortstop, and he's pretty solid at the shortstop position. But are you willing to go that route? So there you have that. Those I've been saying it all winter. Kim would be my 1A, DeYoung my 1B on realistic guys that could play shortstop for the Braves this year. Adames, I would just be in shock. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's not happening. I would love to eat those words, but I don't see how the hell they give Adames the kind of contract north of what Dansby Swanson was going to get. If they were going to do it, they would have given it to Dansby. And there's a couple other guys that are interesting out there, but like a Kike Hernandez, I think he finds his way back on the bench in L.A. because he likes playing for the Dodgers. Garrett Hampson is an interesting guy because he can platoon everywhere and he's got a ton of speed, but he's literally a bench piece. You're not going to get a lot out of him. Same thing for guys like Nick Ahmed. Even like someone who once was, but it no longer is, Brandon Crawford. Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson's a cancer in the locker room, so I wouldn't be excited about getting him, but these are the kinds of guys. Aledmys Diaz. These guys are most likely going to be spring training invitees. So those are the big hit. Let me see if we've got any more questions or comments real quick before we jump out of here. Braves have a solid farm system. Yes, they do. They're much stronger in the pitching department right now, but the Braves farm system, it took a hit the last couple of years because the guys that were ranked really high came from our farm system and into the starting lineup. So when you see other teams that are ranked above the Braves, realize they have guys like Michael Harris that haven't made it to the bigs yet, right? We had a ton of kids that came up at once, and so they're starting to age in the Braves have them locked up, and that's how they've continued their success. But they have guys they could move, but typically right now Atlanta only has, I can only think of 3 guys off the top of my head in that farm system that you would be seriously interested in a trade candidate that are everyday players. Drake Baldwin would be the number 1 guy. Most of the guys that they're going to be dangling in a trade, they have a lot of depth, and I mean a lot of depth in their pitching. But there's certain guys I don't want to lose, and I don't want to lose A.J. Smith-Shawver, and I don't want to lose Hurston Waldrop. I still think their better days are in front of them. Dylan Dodd, I could see being a guy that leaves, but he's not. Dylan Dodd is a 4 or 5 starter in most big league rotations. Maybe. That's his ceiling. So you don't have a lot of guys that you could move unless you move like a Grant Holmes to someone who's going to put them in a starting rotation and give him a chance to be an everyday starter, and they value him more than what we're planning on doing with him, which is an everyday bullpen guy. All right, guys, you got a jam. Happy Turkey Day. Hope y'all enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend. This is my favorite day of the year, is tomorrow, Thanksgiving, because it's all about family and it's all about the food, and you get a little football involved. For you football fans, we'll be doing the Chiefs Raiders game it's a 3:00 game. It's the Amazon. It's either Amazon or Peacock, but it's one of the streaming device games. So if you're not able to absorb it on that, you can come over here and hang out and watch the game with us on YouTube. And we're going to do the football show is 1:30 on Friday. So just like we do on Saturday mornings when it's 90 minutes before kickoff, it's 90 minutes before kickoff for the game. But all that's up on our YouTube page, and we will see you. And we'll be back again next Friday. But if anything breaks, expect about 4:15 Eastern, boom, we're going to be here for the Braves. Because there's a very good chance that sometime next week before we get to Friday, the Braves do something. I mean, do something. Don't just stand there. Do something. My God, it's almost December. I'm losing my mind. Y'all have a good one.